I asked AI to break down Master Plane Episode 3.
Wow, okay. You definitely weren't exaggerating about needing a deep dive for this one. 3 whole parts just for Episode 3. We are diving deep.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even in just these excerpts, the sheer amount of world building is impressive, to say the least. Every scene feels like it adds a whole new layer of intrigue.
No kidding. And honestly, after those cliffhangers, I am very ready to start unraveling some of these mysteries with you. Where do we even begin?
Well,
I mean, we've got Eden grappling with leadership, Maxim Mori lurking in the shadows.
right. Well, maybe the best place to start is with the foundation of this world, which honestly seems to be going through some huge changes.
It does feel that way.
Remember how the story began, with the disagreeable master basically calling all the shots?
Yeah.
These excerpts paint a very, very different picture. It's like
everything's shifting.
Exactly. The power dynamics are totally different now.
It's funny because, like, so far in whatever beta stage that this tool is in, it can only go off of the sources that you provided, and I only provided it Episode 3. And so it has to look at it and try to extrapolate. It's assuming that the disagreeable master started out in charge when the disagreeable master didn't even come into play until Episode 3. So because it has to extrapolate, because it has to assume things and connect and try to connect the dots and interpret things, it leads to some pretty wild hallucinations. But you get the gist. If you're caught up, you get the gist of what's happening here. And as I said, this technology can only get better.
Way more fluid.
It's true. The disagreeable master's influence feels like it's fading, and people like Eden are trying to fill that void.
Yes.
Which, let's be real, is no easy feat.
Yeah.
Trying to establish a haven in this world, that's asking a lot, even without, shadowy figures reporting your every move back to Maxim Mori.
Oh, absolutely. And those figures, those whispers in the alleyways, they're a constant reminder of the challenges Eden's facing.
Yo, they're not lying. Like, Eden is going up against a lot, and it's only because of what Eden stands for. She's representative of something that's going to create order. It's going to help people. And there's no selfishness involved in that. No ulterior motive. So the House of Tiny Lies looks at that as not only as competition too, but because of how honest the operation is, there's no downside, which immediately makes him hard to compete with. And then you got Maxim Mori in these third party, which are now NPCs. They've always been NPCs, but you have him and his cohorts, the Maiden infiltrators of the Maiden, not necessarily working against, but slowing down the progress with them cutting off, all the proceeds and dipping their hands in the pot.
But it's not just those external threats, is it?
No, not even close.
We've got the House of Tiny Lies with their veiled threats, and then there's Ovaz with that ominous premonition about sabotage.
Right.
It all adds up to this pressure point, this sense of danger from within the haven.
So the premonition that they're referring to, I think they are, I don't know what they mean by that. I'm trying to think, was there ever a moment? I know in Episode 2, he did receive guidance. Okay, yeah, he received guidance, and I think Lantier wanted him to preserve, and maybe because of what Lantier wanted him to do, they're thinking that they're having him preserve that because of something that's going to happen. Yeah, that's probably what it is. So because Ovaz was tasked with preserving the Song of All Sons, that is assumed to be in anticipation of a disaster. That's probably where they're getting that from, and that could be true too. Why would Lantier want him to do that? I more so interpreted it as because everything has been erased and we got to start from the beginning, versus the flip side, everything's about to be erased.
Itself. Makes you wonder, can any haven truly thrive when it's constantly under siege from both outside and in?
Especially when the disagreeable master himself won't even give Eden the time of day. It's like he's saying, figure it out yourself, kid.
And that silence is very telling, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It forces Eden into this reactive position. She has to shift from diplomacy to defense,
Yeah.
which is clearly not her preference.
No, definitely not.
And that brings us to, well, the ever-ambitious Maxim Mori.
Right, because if
Wait a minute, what did I
time
miss?
of
Makes you wonder, can any haven truly thrive when it's constantly under siege from both outside and in?
especially when the disagreeable master himself won't even give Eden the time of day. It's like he's saying, figure it out yourself, kid.
And that silence is very telling, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It forces Eden into this reactive position. She has to shift from diplomacy to defense,
Yeah.
which is clearly not her preference.
No, definitely not.
And that brings us to, well, the ever-ambitious Maxim Mori.
Right, because if Eden represents hope, then Maxim is.
Oh, he's something else entirely.
He's playing a much more, shall we say, cunning game. He wants power, and he's not afraid to be ruthless about it.
No, not at all.
I gotta say, with the repackaging of the characters and the revamp of the way the character creation goes, it should be interesting to see what Maxim Mori continues to do, because he's still pretty much the same, except I would say probably more potent as is everyone else. The way it's designed is for your attributes to now reflect the type of character you are, whereas the previous attributes were very middle of the road. It gave you a couple great attributes, gave you some middle ground attributes, gave you a weak attribute. This is more, the changes to the characters gave players more control of the character body design, the DNA, where originally it was just the skills that kind of shaped who you were. In Maxim Mori, the way the game is going to unfold is you're going to see why stats are important, because somebody like Maxim Mori he has weak toughness. He has a rank attribute of weak for his toughness. That means a single blow could destroy him. It could kill him. It could be a lethal because it's so much higher than his toughness. If the damage is so much higher than his toughness, it could kill him. Do you think someone who would put weak attribute as their toughness, do you think you're going to have an opportunity to? It's not happening. It's not happening. So you have to think, what kind of plan does this man have where he feels that he's not going to be touched? And that's just one character. So it'll be interesting to see what Maxim Mori does. I think he has he's way more in control of things with this body that he's in than he was in the previous 2 episodes.
And honestly, that whole line about the maiden honoring the strong and despising the weak, chills. Literal chills.
It's a very poignant statement, and more than a little unnerving. Maxim isn't content with just influence. He wants to be a conduit for the maiden's will. And that will, well, it seems to prioritize strength above all else.
It's a very survival of the fittest mentality.
Exactly, and his methods, the infiltration, the manipulation, it really doesn't bode well for anyone who doesn't fall in line with that vision.
Which leads to a big question. Do you think the disagreeable master will actually consider Maxim's offer? To join forces, I mean.
Ooh, that is the million-dollar question.
Because they're both driven by self-interest, obviously, but their methods are like night and day.
You're right, it's a gamble, even for someone as ruthless as Maxim. The disagreeable master, for all his bluster, he thrives in the existing order. He benefits from the status quo. Maxim's all about shaking things up, and that could be seen as a liability.
It's like watching 2 predators circling each other.
Yes.
Each one trying to decide if the other one's a potential ally or a...
So keep in mind, the disagreeable master is an NPC. And this is how I envision NPCs. I envision them to be few and far between, but they will have an impact on a story. They might even be the beginning of a new plot for the time they're around. And they're not designed to always be around. Some might be killed, some might go do their own thing. they're going to get added to the character list, which I'll discuss real soon. We're introducing the character list, which is going to be important in how people end up in certain plots. They're going to be added to the character list, so they can be very important. Disagreeable Master is an interesting NPC to have at this juncture, probably the most appropriate to be able to show what mythic means, what I mean by this when I say that NPCs are going to kind of be ingrained. The Disagreeable Master currently is an opponent for a couple existing players, and an ally or a benefit to a couple existing players that I can think of. So to see the fate of the Disagreeable Master, and it could be interesting because dependencies are going to start coming into play, or the opposite, just headaches. And it'll be interesting to see what goes and what stays.
Threat to be eliminated.
And one wrong move could turn it into a very messy situation.
Speaking of messy, we can't forget Alai's rather brutal rise to power. That definitely reminded us that some predators prefer a much more direct approach.
Oh, absolutely.
What did you make of her strategy in the Verdant Canopies?
Well, Alai,
So on that note, that is definitely a come up. So what what she did was stumbled upon existing territory that there's no one there to stop her now. Currently, her and her people are currently there, so that opens up a lot of doors if and when the player continues that particular plot line. There's still Asal, that player character, had discovered to the west, the desolate ranch, which was like an abandoned outpost. What it looked like, that was still, the stuff was still there. It's a mystery as to why it was abandoned. That's still there, and no one, Asal hasn't returned to there. But there's going to be places that definitely are going to be ripe with more digging and exploring further into the plots and stuff.
Interesting, isn't she? Where Eden seeks harmony and Maxim favors manipulation, Alai is a force of nature. She is pure, unadulterated ambition.
And she plays to win.
Oh, 100%. Her tactics in the Verdant Canopies, especially, staining the trees with the black blood of her enemies, that's a statement.
It's brutal.
It is, but it's calculated. It's a display of dominance. It's a message to anyone who might even think about challenging her claim.
Oh, for sure. It's like she understands the power of fear on this primal level. But it's more than that too, right? Those stained trees, they're a constant reminder, even if you manage to forget what Alai is capable of. They're right there.
Exactly. It creates this chilling effect. It's not just that you're afraid to cross her, you're afraid to even entertain the thought of challenging her.
Because you don't want to end up as tree fertilizer.
Precisely. And
she said you don't want to end up as tree fertilizer. Yo. Yes, Alai painted the trees with her enemy's blood. She did. And it can be symbolic if they keep it there.
that fear is how she maintains control.
It makes you wonder, though, where does she go from there?
What do you mean?
I mean, she's conquered the verdant canopies. So what's next? What do you do when you've already stained a whole forest with the blood of your enemies?
They love
That's
that.
a question I think even Alai is still figuring out.
Yo, what is Alai going to do next? The show was on a little hiatus, and Alai might be on one as well. I don't know. But I would love to see what happens next. But this is also a game that can continue with the coming and going of players. It's an open campaign. There's no way I can make it depend on one person. The more frequent players, I have an easier time driving plots in their court because I know they're going to be there to carry the plot or continue the plot. But if the player has to go, they have to go. So the world goes on, and we can always kind of shift. There's always room to shift if we have to do like an emergency pull away. But players are where they are. If the character's not there, it'll be like they're not there. You know, maybe Ally stepped away for some reason. And maybe and if it's too long, if Ally's away for a really long time, ooh, what happened? Ooh, the master plane, people are disappeared. Ooh, you know. We'll make it funner and create more creative, but that's always an out.
Fair enough. So we've got Ally
Like
conquering
Lost.
new territory, and then we have Nazareth, who seems to stumble into danger.
Like season 12, Ally returns and she's really in a secret bunker under the master plane, and she presses a button to make sure it doesn't reset again.
At every turn, and yet somehow always lands on his feet. It's kind of amazing, actually.
He does seem to have this uncanny knack for getting into and out of trouble.
That whole sequence with the parasites, for
They don't know about episode 2.
instance.
Oh, tell me about it.
It was repulsive. It was exhilarating. It was like, I don't know, you found yourself rooting for him, even as you were cringing at the descriptions.
Exactly. You felt bad for the parasites.
Well, maybe not that bad.
But it does make you wonder if it's all just dumb luck, or if there's something else at play there. Remember that scroll he found? The one with the, what was it called? The core of chaos.
Oh, yeah, that can't be a coincidence. That has to factor into his whole defy death routine somehow.
They're wilding. So, because he seems to have evaded danger and death so many times, they're perceiving him as someone who always does that. And he does, but it's weird to say after he just kind of, he's recovering from being defeated. And he hasn't always avoided danger. But anyway, the core of chaos is what they're calling his scroll. I didn't go into what the scroll does in the sources that I gave them, so they don't know what the scroll does. Nazareth knows what the scroll does. And we're gonna make that biff. We're gonna put some lore into that scroll. I want scrolls, magic scrolls. There has to be significance behind them. I believe I want to tie this into the master plane. But anyway, I want to tie this to something bigger. So we're going to do a lore deep dive on the scroll as well. For now, the player knows what the scroll does. He's not good at using it, but it's very powerful, and it's not called the core of chaos. So whenever they refer to the core of chaos, just know they're talking about this unnamed scroll that he received. I mean, technically, the scroll has a magical technique. A scroll is a technique at the end of the day. This particular scroll is a technique. It's something that he has acquired. And that's all we know about it currently.
Definitely intriguing, to say the least.
It's like Nazareth is wandering around with the literal embodiment of chaos in his pocket.
And he's remarkably chill about it. You'd think discovering an artifact like that would be a bigger deal, but he's just like, oh cool, another Tuesday.
Another day, another ancient artifact. But it does make you wonder, how is that power going to manifest? And how will it affect his path? And what does it mean for the rest of this world?
Only time will tell, I suppose.
It's definitely a weapon of mass destruction. He can do damage with. He can be a menace with that scroll.
Speaking of journeys into the unknown, we can't forget about Willem and Zanhera. They really went down the rabbit hole with that whole Silent Gates expedition.
Talk about a wild ride.
Yeah.
1 minute they're navigating auras of pure anguish. The next they're face to face with. Well, you know. And then there's Willem, making friends with a band of rogue whatchamacallites.
It's a lot.
It really is. But I think what's so fascinating about their
He
story
said
is how
a band of whatchamacallites.
And then there's Willem, making friends with a band of rogue whatchamacallites.
It's a lot.
It really is.
Did he mean to say whatchamacallits? And why would he refer to just civilians as whatchamacallits? That's strange. He said whatchamacallites. That sounds like a cool name for a manifestation.
Anguish, the next they're face to face with. Well, you know. And then there's Willem, making friends with a...
spazzed out right there. He hallucinated and just... He fell asleep. Listen, I don't know where he was going with that. He fell asleep. Listen.
Wild ride. 1 minute they're navigating auras of pure anguish, the next they're face to face with. Well, you know. And then there's Willem, making friends with a band of
1 minute you're on a train of thought, and then the next minute
rogue whatchamacallites.
It's a lot.
It really is. But I think what's so fascinating about their story is how it highlights the duality of this world, wouldn't you say? You've got the silent gaze with these extremes of emotion, and it's like a microcosm of the larger forces at play.
It's true. One wrong turn and you're plunged into despair. Or worse.
And that's the thing, isn't it? In this world, your greatest strength can quickly become your greatest weakness.
And in Willem's case, it seems like his thirst for knowledge might have led him straight into a trap.
His fascination with those ornaments, those soul-storing ornaments. It's a classic case of curiosity maybe getting the better of him. A cautionary tale about the allure of the unknown. You have to consider the consequences before you dive in head first.
Especially when you've got someone like Iyengar, a being of pure...
So just there was nothing alluring about the ornaments. They were a tool. They weren't even there was nothing in them. There was no enchantment. They're a tool that he identified that could be very useful. There's a reason you want to keep. There may be a reason you would want to keep a soul apart from you, depending on how your relationship with the souls and how they affect you, depending on who you are. You might not want them on you. So this just gave him an option. He saw it as some flexibility, and there wasn't any kind of Gollum things, going on where the pictures may have looked like he was like, oh, but he probably was like, it was probably impressive. He probably never seen anything like that before.
Or elemental energy saying, hey, maybe don't do that.
Right. And her warnings about those ornaments enslaving souls. That's some heavy stuff.
Heavy doesn't even begin to describe it.
It definitely raises some ethical questions. But I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of it.
I thought it was crazy that was even a thing, and it happened to be a thing between the two characters where it would be a thing. Does that make sense? What are the odds that these two characters, these players who have been role-playing together in the Discord server, what are the odds that they foresaw that could be a chaotic, a very problematic topic? Iyengar literally represents a race of beings that have been locked away, I believe. And her character, one of her traits is she really doesn't like that. The concept of being bound in slavery and trapped. And what are the odds that she would end up working with a character who doesn't necessarily trap souls, but he takes them into his body against their will? So far, from what I've seen, maybe certain souls don't have a place to be and would like to be in a vessel. That's possible, and that's usually how he commandeers these souls. And here he is with these tools. I rolled the dice on what the tools are, and they were going to be to his benefit because he would be buying something. And it turned out to be something like that, which would benefit him. When I was rolling the dice, I didn't think of something that would benefit him and also not offend someone else. I didn't even think of that. But as I was writing it, I was like, oh yeah, she doesn't like shit like this, which is why I had to go and add the part where she actually does notice what's happening and at least says something about it. Can't let that go unspoken about. So I had her, say something about it. And he didn't have to lie when he said what he said. It was true. He's not a tyrant catching them like a soul catcher or, smuggler or something like that. He was honest when he said that, it's for the benefit of everyone. And so, because they have built this trust already, it was easy for Zendaya, for Zanera to say, okay, I trust him, and Ianga trusts Zanera, so that was easy to de-escalate. He just had to be serious and let them know what his thoughts were, and that's what he did.
Episode 3.
We have from shifting power dynamics to the very literal rise of Alai to that whole core of chaos situation. This episode has been a wild ride. Where do we go from here?
Well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll explore the fallout from all these events. We'll see how alliances are made and broken as the stakes continue to rise.
All right. All right. So from here, they go into the next part of the show, but take a moment here and let me know in the comment section if can you dig this? Like, I like listening to them discuss the show, and it can only get better. I can't wait till it gets better. It can definitely be, polish up on. I would love to be able to give it all the shows and it retain the memory of previous shows. We're not there yet. I gave it all the shows and I created and I had them do the same thing. But they hallucinate hard when you know what I mean? Like, they mess around. I think I gave it all the episodes, and I said, break it down. And they were saying that they confused Nazareth with the artist, which is a really big, that can be really confusing. Just making those kind of mistakes. And I want these to be a benefit to give us a rundown, an idea of what has happened, a recap, but I don't want it to be so wrong to the point where it's messing me up, because it's already hard trying to remember half of this shit when you're running a solo campaign, and I don't write most of this stuff down, which is my problem, but I don't want to make it worse with these hallucinating ass AIs. But if we can focus in on one thing at a time, they might be a little disjointed in terms of their logic between the characters and episodes, but like I said, hopefully it gets better. But it does a better job when it's given a few sources and saying, hey, break this down. I tried it different ways. I gave part 1 of episode 3, part 2, and it did good. But I found the result that I got. I think this might be the one where I gave it part 1, part 2, and part 3 and said, hey, break it down, as opposed to all of it together.
It's funny, when you think about it, Ayanga's warning about those ornaments, it really makes you wonder.
It does, doesn't it?
She's so connected to the flow of energy and all that. Maybe she sensed something off. Something about those ornaments that Willem, in his eagerness to learn everything, just didn't pick up on.
Like a sixth sense, almost. She could see the danger that Willem, with his more, intellectual approach, couldn't.
Yeah, exactly. It's like she could see the jinn circling, drawn to the power of those soul-storing.
The jinn was not involved here, so this is hallucinating.
Things like
they're thinking that the jinn's influence began when he got his hands on the ornaments, but the ornaments is totally separate. He didn't begin to become they didn't get allured by the jinn until they got to the tomb of the snake.
Moths to a flame, pretty chilling when you think about it.
It really is. And it kind of makes you think about ambition, even with the best of intentions, trying to learn too much, acquire too much, it can backfire.
100%.
Poor Willem. He's definitely learned that lesson the hard way.
He really has.
But while Willem stumbles into the jinn's clutches, Nazareth's whole deal with that core of chaos feels different. He's practically dancing with danger, embracing the unknown. It's kind of unnerving, honestly.
There's a certain fearlessness to Nazareth, wouldn't you say? It's like he doesn't shy away from danger. He runs head first towards it. It's like he knows somehow that he'll be okay.
And remember how casually he mentioned, clearing a path to that scroll for his client in the House of Tiny Lies? That's some next level audacity.
Right. Like he's dangling this artifact in front of them, knowing they can't resist its power. And who knows what they'll do with it.
So what they're more so talking about is he encountered a room with 2 scrolls. One of them was some weird kind of mimic creature that was pretending to be a scroll. It's still in there. And he wasn't lying when he said that he cleared a path, because there's many paths. And he wasn't lying when he said that there's some potential treasure in there, because there's a lot of treasure. But there's a little deception involved, because there are clearly things in there pretending to be treasure as well. So with the combination of there being many paths with there being remaining treasure, he doesn't know for sure if there's any more treasure that's actually real. There's a lot of danger in there. So they're technically going, it's still dangerous. That place is still dangerous. What they say? Let me see.
House of Tiny Lies, that's some next level audacity.
Right. Like he's dangling this artifact in front of them, knowing they can't resist its power.
We don't know what the power is. We know it's destructive outside of the game. We know it has destructive capabilities because of what was said in Discord when we assigned the rewards. But in terms of within game, we don't know what it can do. We haven't seen it used yet.
And who knows what they'll do with it.
It's playing with fire, for sure.
Big time.
And speaking of playing with fire, we've got to talk about Alai. Her little power move in the verdant canopies, brutal.
No other word for it.
The black blood staining the trees. It's a powerful image. A reminder that she's not someone to be trifled with. But now that she's achieved her goal, conquered the canopies, what's next? Where does she go from there?
That's the question, isn't it? Alai strikes me as the kind of person who always needs a challenge. She's ambitious, always looking for the next big thing. The verdant canopies were just one victory in what's likely a much larger plan.
So what you're saying is she's just getting started.
I don't even think she has a plan. Not yet. She won't sit still. She wanted to see what was out there. She's a conqueror. I think she even said something to that effect.
I think that's a safe bet. And with Alai on the move, consolidating her power, it begs the question, who, if anyone, is going to stand up to her?
Yeah, good question. Because while she's off conquering the South back in the settlement, it seems like the House of Tiny Lies is losing their grip.
They are, aren't they? Between Maxim's little proposal and that mysterious letter delivered by Samuel, things aren't looking so good.
Oh, that letter. That's a whole other can of worms, isn't it? We don't get a lot of specifics from the source material, but the disagreeable master's reaction, it definitely hinted at something huge.
It did. It's like Samuel, without realizing it, just threw a wrench in the entire system, threw everything off balance.
And of course, Maxim's watching all of this unfold like a hawk, just waiting for the opportune moment to swoop in.
Well, he is nothing if not opportunistic.
It really is like a game of chess with these characters, each one trying to outmaneuver the other, making power plays left and right, and the stakes just keep getting higher.
It's true, and you never know who's going to make a move next. Look at Oiji, for example. At first glance, you wouldn't think he'd be the type to get involved in all this political maneuvering, would you? He's got his forge, he's got his craft, seems simple enough.
Yeah, he always seemed content with his lot in life.
But then, boom, he throws his support behind the golden bow, gives them these amazing enchanted tools. It definitely suggests a shift in his perspective, wouldn't you say?
For sure. It's like he recognizes something special in what Eden's trying to build. And that scene in the tavern, that celebration with Lontir's blessing illuminating everything, that felt significant.
Didn't it? Like, for a moment, there was genuine hope. It made you believe that maybe, just maybe, things could actually work out for once.
Which, in hindsight, probably means it was all doomed to go horribly wrong.
Right.
Because no sooner do they finish celebrating than Willem shows up, possessed by the djinn, and Darren.
Oh, poor Darren.
Talk about a gut punch. One minute they're toasting to a brighter future, the next minute, bam! Darren's the djinn's new target.
And it...
The player, what's so cool about that whole situation is that the player, Darren Lone Swift, in his submission, outright states that if anyone were to, that he would sacrifice himself should anyone have their body taken over. It was so weird. It's like he foresaw. There's no way he could have foreseen what happened because the djinn was rolled on the spot. He says, when I asked the question, anything else I should know, in your submission, this player wrote, if Darren has the chance to save someone's life by offering himself as a sacrifice to be captured / mind controlled, he will take the opportunity even if the one being attacked begs him not to, out of his own sense of duty as a soldier from the past. it was perfect, especially because ideally and usually and more often than not, I will stick to the dice rolls. It's my game. I am the referee. What goes is how I interpret it, and it's not always going to align with the players, right? That's how Mythic is. It's all up to interpretation. And so there's going to be times where we disagree on things. And the way I do things is failure is also success. However, there was some confusion, and which led to a lot of the great changes that we're making to the game. But there was some confusion around what my intentions were with having a player be possessed. Usually in Dungeons and Dragons or something, when someone gets possessed and you feel that you're losing control of your character or your body gets taken over by the DM. That's never, that never feels great. And but that's not what's happening with the Djinn. The Djinn is just a plot point. And because we had a character like that takes on souls and currently has a soul that has a soul in his body that's a bad guy. Willem has a soul in him that is a bad guy. We were going to add another one, but we're shifting gears, and I'm glad we are shifting gears because that allowed Darren's piece that he added to his submission to really take effect, essentially sacrificing himself for Willem, and now has this power, which is a benefit. And as the plot goes on, we'll see how it's a curse or what it becomes. It's going to be story related. The Djinn is essentially it's a manifestation. It's now an NPC because it's in Darren's body, and we don't know where Darren is. So when Darren returns is when that plot will continue, which is kind of cool.
Leaves us with so many questions. What does this mean for Darren in the long run? Can he fight back against the Djinn's influence, or is he?
And what about the disagreeable master? He's up against something
So before going on to the disagreeable master, the Djinn, whatever Darren does, is going to somehow further the Djinn's goals and benefit the Djinn's plan. That's the plot. This is a ticking time bomb. They have to find a way to remove this thing. And they have as much time as Darren has. So if Darren never takes a turn, that clock isn't ticking. The Djinn only progresses when Darren takes actions. And we can't have a scene without Darren. The players can prepare to do something when they see Darren. That's cool too. But that clock won't start ticking, and the Djinn's progress to its plan will not be ongoing until Darren takes an action, which is what drives the Djinn's plan. So that's literally a plot point that's frozen because Darren may currently not be here. This is why it's very important for everybody to understand that and adhere to the rules. Everybody should have their own character, and no one should have any alternative characters or be playing any alternative characters. I'll never forget the time that I had a game going. It was called Gamma Haven. And when I found out that one of the players was also literally almost like 10 other players, and all the time that I was putting into writing and combining storylines, I was really entertaining what I thought was a larger audience, entertaining a selfish person. And luckily there were a great amount of other real players. But to know that 1/3 of the population of the game that you're facilitating is all one person, I never want that to happen again. It's important that everybody controls their person, as not to ruin the game and as not to burn me out. That said, it's good when players go away and come back, or go away and don't come back. It lets you think of, where that character is. Their character's somewhere off in the world. And anyone who wants to take a break, taking a break has some story elements too that it's a benefit. It's a win-win. So no one should feel bad about, stepping away for a little bit or coming back. It's like a soap opera. General Hospital. Remember General Hospital or All My Children? I don't remember which one it was. Characters that come back, and they got like a scar now. Oh, he has a scar now. What happened while they were gone? Where'd the scar come from? Or they changed? What's their alignment?
Clearly doesn't understand. That was a pretty humbling moment for a guy who usually seems to have all the answers. It's almost cruel when you think about it. 1 minute, the Golden Bough is buzzing with hope and celebration. The next, bam, Darren's possessed. And the disagreeable master is, out of his depth, to say the least. It's like the story just wants to remind us that even a glimmer of hope can be snuffed out in an instant.
It's a harsh lesson, for sure, and not exactly a comforting one.
Not at all. It makes...
Oh, yeah, that is kind of crazy because Samuel's beaten. Yeah. And Darren is missing. These were the two people that protected the Golden Bough.
You wonder, what chance does peace really have in a world where even someone like the disagreeable master can be caught off guard like that?
It's a good question. It really highlights the unpredictable nature of, everything. The disagreeable master, he's used to being in control, bending reality to his will. This is different. It's like the story saying, hey, there are forces at play here that even you don't fully understand.
And those forces are not messing around.
Nope. And with Darren as the Jinn's vessel,
yeah,
the stakes just got a whole lot higher.
Speaking of Darren, I keep thinking about those ornaments embedded in him, those soul-storing things. Talk about a recipe for disaster. It's like giving a loaded weapon to someone who's never even held a knife before.
It's a worrying thought. Darren's a good person,
Yeah.
Loyal to Eden, wants what's best for the Haven.
Right.
But we've seen how seductive power can be, how easily it can corrupt even the purest intentions.
Wait.
Especially when that power is all...
Wait.
Darren, this is different. It's like the story saying, hey, there are forces at play here. The disagreeable master, he's used to being in control, bending reality to his will. This is different. It's like the story saying, hey, there are forces at play here that even you don't fully understand.
And those forces are not messing around.
Nope. And with Darren as the Jinn's vessel,
yeah,
the stakes just got a whole lot higher.
Speaking of Darren, I keep thinking about those ornaments embedded in him, those soul-storing things. Talk about a recipe for disaster. It's like...
So for clarification, the ornaments are still in Willem Toth's body, if he hasn't already taken them out in the Discord role-playing. I'm going to review the role-playing soon. But that's still in his possession. The Jinn did not take them out and did not take over Darren and then take them out and put them in himself. If that were the case, I would have stated that because that's important. But that's a whole item that Willem has. The Jinn used it to bring his minions. Apparently, Darren's body is so full of life, which was the enticing part of the deal, that the Jinn felt it didn't need additional storage, and instead, maybe his minions are finding shelter in Darren's armor, large armor and shield and an axe. You know what I mean? And Darren himself is a large person, so purposefully did not state that the tools went with Darren. Darren's body doesn't need these tools, or the Jinn maybe feels that he'd rather just pull everything into Darren's body and not need the tools. So just for clarification, that's what's going on.
Giving a loaded weapon to someone who's never even held a knife before.
It's a worrying thought. Darren's a good person,
Yeah.
Loyal to Eden, wants what's best for the Haven.
Right.
But we've seen how seductive power can be, how easily it can corrupt even the purest intentions.
Especially when that power is all tangled up with something as chaotic and unpredictable as the, what was it called?
The core of chaos.
Yeah, that thing. It's like Nazareth just went and poured gasoline on an already out of control fire.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. He's carrying around this storm cloud of potential disaster wherever he goes.
He is carrying a weapon of mass destruction.
It's only a matter of time before things escalate. Especially with Maxim Mori lurking in the background.
Because we all know he's not going to let a good crisis go to waste. Maxim sees an opportunity, he's going to take it.
Oh, absolutely. And with the disagreeable master weakened, off balance, well, it's not looking good.
So what? Do you think Maxim...
I wouldn't say weakened. Maybe weakened. Everything about him was perception, right? And maybe people are starting to doubt how great the House of Tiny Lies is.
We'll try to seize control of the House of Tiny Lies. Is that what we're thinking?
It's definitely within the realm of possibility. Remember, his whole deal
I don't think Maxim is going after the House of Tiny Lies. Maybe I missed something.
is fulfilling the maiden's will. And with the disagreeable master out of commission, it's the perfect chance to step in and, well, take charge.
And if that happens, what does that even mean for the Haven? For Eden's dream? It's hard to even imagine.
It's not a future I particularly want to dwell on. These final scenes, they really leave you with this sense of unease.
Big time. Like, we've had moments of hope, sure, but it always feels like the other shoe is about to drop.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I have to ask, is true peace even possible in this world? In a world so full of ambition and, well, chaos.
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The million-dollar question. And I honestly don't think there's an easy answer, but maybe that's the point. This story, this world, it makes you think. It makes you confront those hard questions, those messy realities. As you keep exploring, as you read on, pay attention to the choices these characters make, the sacrifices they're willing to endure. Because those choices, those are what will ultimately determine the fate of this world, whether it finds peace or succumbs to the chaos.
And on that cheery note,
This has been fun.
it has. Until next time, listeners, keep exploring those narratives, and we'll be back soon to dive deep into the next one.
All right. That was very interesting. So yeah, they're spot on with a lot of the stuff, but the rest of this, there's some things that they're a little confused on, and that's because they're given a small. It's just the third episode that they were given, so they probably need more context to really thread the needle there, pull it through. But I enjoyed that, to hear their perspective, how they interpret things. They made some good points. Some obvious points. The core of chaos. What is Nazareth gonna do with? What do we think Nazareth is gonna do with that power? You know, if I remember, it is a scroll. It's a technique that he just learned, so it has a low rank to it, but it's destructive, ranged magic with a large area of effect. What will he do with that? What will Eli do next? Will she stay in the verdant canopies for a little bit longer? Will she retire there, lay down her and rest there for a little bit? Take a little break, disappear for a little while? Will Darren reappear? Will Sam? How's Sam recovering? I believe I saw some role play in the server. We'll look into that, see how Sam's coming along. But before we figure out what happens next on turn 4, episode 3 or episode 4, we're going to go through some role plays, and we're going to build out some lore to fatten up the entryway into episode 4.